The rain lashed against the windows. A fierce storm outside. But inside the hospital, something unimaginable was about to happen. Dr. Emma Collins had seen her fair share of emergencies. But nothing had prepared her for what walked through the doors that night. As the thunder roared and the winds howled, the doors slammed open, revealing a majestic creature, its massive golden mane dripping with water. A lion. And not just any lion. This one was carrying something. A bundle wrapped in cloth. Its eyes filled with an unspoken plea. The room fell into a stunned silence. Every eye fixated on the creature that had just defied logic. And in that moment, Dr. Collins knew that this was not a typical emergency. The lion wasn't here by chance. It was here because it trusted them with its most precious possession. What could drive a wild animal to such desperation? The answer, as she would soon learn, would change everything. The storm outside was unlike anything anyone had seen in years. The wind howled like a beast, rattling the windows and shaking the very foundation of the hospital. Inside, the usual hum of activity in the emergency room had quieted, an eerie stillness filling the air. Nurses and doctors moved with tension, their eyes flickering nervously toward the windows, the storm's fury pressing in on them. Suddenly, the hospital doors burst open with a force that rattled the walls. A massive lion, its golden mane soaked from the torrential downpour, strode into the room with an air of grace and urgency. Its deep, intelligent eyes scanned the room, scanning each person as if assessing whether they were worthy of its trust. In its mouth, it held something carefully, an object wrapped in a tattered cloth. The lion's arrival was surreal, its presence both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Everyone stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Nurse Emma Parker was the first to break the silence. Her heart raced as the sight of the lion froze everyone in place. But her instincts pushed her forward. The air in the room was thick with tension, the roar of the storm outside now muffled under the weight of the unexpected. The lion's gaze was unwavering, its golden eyes locking onto hers with a silent plea for help. Slowly, it lowered its bundle onto the cold hospital floor, and the cloth shifted slightly, revealing a small, trembling form. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she knelt beside the bundle, her hands shaking with a mix of fear and awe. As she gently unwrapped the cloth, a tiny lion cub, no bigger than a newborn, lay curled up, its tiny body quivering from the cold and exhaustion. Its eyes flickered open, barely conscious, struggling to survive. Emma's heart shattered as she realized the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just a wild animal seeking help, it was a mother, desperate to save her cub. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she gazed at the tiny cub in her hands, its fragile form trembling with every shallow breath. The lion, still standing nearby, stepped forward, its eyes never leaving the cub. There was something in its gaze, soft, yet full of quiet desperation. The room seemed to shrink around Emma, the weight of the situation pressing down on her. How had this lion gotten here? What could have driven it to such lengths? Her mind raced, but there was no time for answers. The mother's silent plea was enough. Emma gently cradled the cub in her arms, carefully checking for injuries. The lion nudged her with its large, wet nose, a subtle but urgent reminder of the bond between them. It wasn't just an animal seeking refuge, it was a mother who had traveled through the storm, fighting the odds to save her child. Emma's thoughts were interrupted by the sudden arrival of Dr. Michaels, who quickly began assessing the cub's condition. As the doctor worked, Emma stayed close, watching the lion's every move. It paced back and forth, its gaze flickering between the cub and the humans in the room. The tension was palpable, but amidst the chaos, the connection between mother and child was undeniable. The minutes felt like hours as Dr. Michaels worked, his hands steady as he assessed the tiny cub's condition. Emma stayed by its side, her eyes never leaving the lion, whose gaze never wavered. The lion paced back and forth, its large paws patting softly on the cold, tiled floor. Every movement was measured, as if it was waiting for something, waiting for a sign that its cub would survive. The air was thick with unspoken words, and Emma couldn't help but feel the weight of the mother's trust. Finally, Dr. Michaels gave a quiet nod, breaking the tension that had gripped the room. "We can save it. It's weak, but we can stabilize it." A wave of relief washed over Emma, but as she looked up at the lion, her heart sank. The lion's gaze locked with hers once again, and in that moment, she understood. This wasn't just a wild animal seeking help. It had brought its cub here because it knew it was the one place that could offer safety, care, and protection. Emma's hands trembled as she looked back at the cub, a deep scar on the lion's side catching her eye. It was jagged, raw, and still healing, proof that this mother had fought fiercely to protect her child. As she looked at the lion, tears welled up in her eyes. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside, a bond had formed, a bond of life, love, and survival.